It is 5:15. Oh, nope, sorry. My clock on here says, but my phone only says 5:14. Good evening. Welcome to the Gilbert Town Council study session for December 17th, 2024. I will call this meeting to order. We only have one item on our agenda. That's the presentation and discussion of recommendations of the Community Engagement Task Force on the focus area related to teen violence. I see Melanie Dykstra headed to the podium. Good evening, Melanie.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. I am Melanie Dykstra, the Volunteer and Community Resources Manager for the Town of Gilbert, and I'm one of the staff liaisons to the Community Engagement Task Force. And I am here tonight and excited to bring forth these recommendations. Our Chair, Natasha Ash, will actually be presenting the specific recommendations to you, but prior to that, I'm going to take you through kind of a little bit of how we got here today. So if you remember, on April 16th, the Town Council recommended the recruitment of members for this task force, and on June 4th, you appointed 11 members and 4 alternates, which also included 5 of the teens. We do have a few folks in our audience today who are part of our task force. Not everyone could make it this evening, but we do have a bit of representation. But we also took direction from council that we wanted to make sure we reached into the community as well and worked with our schools and our police department. So 6 additional advisory members were put on the task force and part of our discussions to this point. We did kick off our first meeting June 10th, and we did have a culminating meeting on December 9th regarding this. As you mentioned, the focus area was the teen violence. And the journey that they went through is we did have some board member training, education, and compression planning. A little more specifics on that. The board member training, as you've all been through, is that open meeting law. So fun, so fabulous, but very important to make sure they understood their roles and responsibilities and how a task force worked. But then we jumped right into education, and this was an opportunity for us to make sure that they had background information, understood what the town was already doing, what different areas were engaged in these efforts. So we did have the police department come in. They really gave an education about the school resource officer program, the SROs, gave PD data. They talked about our youth and adult resources program. We actually had a presentation by MCAO about the Report Don't Repost campaign. We also heard about the youth survey results that came out of all the schools that participated. The presentation was by the ASU professor Dustin Pardini, which was very educational. We also brought in Parks and Recreation so they could talk about what we were currently doing with teens, kind of what their vision was for the future, what they had already been hearing, so that they could have an understanding in that realm as well. And then we also heard back from Gilbert PD about their youth engagement efforts. As you know, we brought on a youth engagement officer and looking at what that looked like, some of the day-to-day operations and then community engagement efforts that they had been doing. They also got a packet of kind of teen resources. And then once all of that was done, we did jump into our compression planning, and this was conducted by Kathleen Dollar, which we do a huge thank you to her as well. But compression planning, it was an opportunity to do kind of strategic planning through key discussions of the process. But it was presentations, we did breakout sessions, they did individual idea development, but this also led to being able to do dot exercises as well as time frame identification. But really the big piece was the impact effort matrix. So this is really making sure that when those recommendations are moving forward, they're like, well, how big of an impact will this make? And what's the effort to make it there? Is it worth us bringing it forward? Do we really think it's going to have the information we want? And that led to those final recommendations. And again, these were focused around our key areas that follows the past task force through the educational opportunities, awareness, and resources, with again the outcome goal of promoting awareness of the issues, identifying resources, and providing education of teen violence. And again, they kept in consideration, as you heard, we also wanted to make sure we understood the time frame. So was it going to be a short-term, mid-term, long-term effort? What kind of resources may be needed? Collaboration, as we know, this is a community effort, not just through the town. So we had those discussions as well. And so, where's my little thingy's not working now. Point it different. It quit. Hello. Okay, maybe just advance the slide for me if you can. Okay. So with that, we will be talking now about the action recommendations for the teen violence. There were 108 ideas that the task force actually did come up with. There were some overarching themes. Just in the educational space, there were 30 different ideas that moved forward, that came forward to be discussed. About parenting classes were teen education, business, community surveys, SROs. That was definitely some of the overarching themes. In awareness, there were 41 different ideas that came forward. A lot about information sharing, parks and recreation engagement, social media campaign, and cross-community efforts. And then 37 different ideas for resources, really looking at recreational options, safe spaces, program support, and staffing. And of these, they did narrow it down to the final list of 12 recommendations that will be presented in summary here by our chair, Natasha Ash. So I will let her come up to do that. And it works again, so yay!
All right. Thank you, Melanie. Good afternoon, Mayor and Town Council. I am honored to be here to be able to present these recommendations that the task force have come up with. We worked a lot this year, and we've done a lot of important work. The issue of teen violence, we know, is a very sensitive topic, and it's not one that only affects our youth, but it affects our entire community. And we know that it requires a collective effort. And so we knew that coming into this work, it was going to be hard. There were going to be some agreements, some disagreements, but we got through it. And we knew that we were going to have to look at this issue from all different angles. We got to learn a lot about the initiatives that the town of Gilbert has already taken and is taken to address this issue, and we hope to offer up some more promising recommendations. Through our work, we've put together a set of recommendations that we hope will help lay the foundation for meaningful change and foster collaboration and ultimately help build a safer community for us all. As Melanie mentioned, the recommendations are split up into 3 parts. The first part being education, the second being awareness, and the third being resources. Many of them are scaled for time frame, meaning short, mid, and long, and this is just how we decided how long it would take to implement many of these recommendations. So the first being education. One of my favorite quotes is by Nelson Mandela, and he says that education is the most powerful weapon which we can use to change the world. And in this instance, I believe that we can use education to help change our community and bring about more positive impact. And one of the ideas that we came up with is the implementation of the School Ambassador Program. So we, the task force, recommend partnering to establish or support a School Ambassador Club program that involves junior high and high school representatives from each grade level. The School Ambassador Program would operate similarly to student government councils, where students would run for leadership positions within the school. Now, why we feel like this type of leadership work? Teen leadership works because teens have more of a unique understanding of their peers, their struggles, whether it's bullying, social media pressures, or general societal pressures. And they are better positioned than adults to recognize the early signs of violence when educated in conflict because they experience it themselves. The School Ambassador Program, we believe, helps to empower students to lead. And by empowering students to take on leadership roles, we believe it gives them a place, and everyone wants to feel like they have a place in their school and in society. It gives them something to do. We can leverage their influence to promote positive change within the schools, and the teen ambassadors can act as trusted voices and influence their peers to make more safer and responsible choices. And the last piece of the School Ambassador Program, which I feel is more important, because I'm pretty sure we were all influenced when we were in high school and middle school, is the peer-to-peer impact. It's important because collectively, I know that we are the average of the 5 people that we spend the most time with. And this idea shows us that how much influence the peers have among each other. So in the context of schools, the peer influence is incredibly powerful. The next piece of the education is educational classes. And so we, the task force, recommend offering or partnering to provide a range of educational classes, workshops, seminars, something that's really hands-on that helps people learn at Gilbert Recreation Centers and libraries. These programs are crucial because education helps us uncover what we might not be aware of. It offers insights to critical issues like teen violence and bullying. It helps us to identify the signs of teen violence and when things are escalating. And it will also help people to learn how to de-escalate and with better conflict resolution. Many may not fully understand these issues until they are truly faced with them, and so we believe that education is one of the key aspects. These classes would not just be for teens, they would be for their families and anyone in the community that would love to come to them. And the next piece of the educational classes are classes for parents. So we recommend exploring the possibility of mandating educational classes for parents whose teens have been involved in violent behavior. This is important because the parents do play a role, and they are also at the front lines of their teens' behavior as well. These classes would help the parents to recognize the early warning signs and intervene effectively and prevent further violence. Throughout our planning, we learned a lot about the Gilbert Youth and Adult Resource, the GYAR, within Gilbert PD, and a lot about the diversion program and how they worked with the parents and the school districts. And we felt like it's an amazing program. There are a couple of cracks. It may not be as accessible for a lot of people in the community. And resources like this, like classes, they are more accessible when they're in the community and at safer locations. The last part of the educational piece is to offer or partner to provide education about laws and ordinances that and consequences of teen violence for both teens and adults. The reason this is so important is because many people may not be aware of the current mandated laws or ordinances within the town, and this is something that we identified early on when we were doing our planning. This lack of awareness can lead to unintended violations. So we have to find new ways to update and communicate this information to the community. Some of our teens were really great with the feedback. They even offered the idea of being able to implement this information in school assemblies, and that's a better way to get it to the students when they're in school. So the goal is to raise awareness and help create a more law-abiding, proactive community where people are focused on safety, and one of the ways to truly do that is to make sure our community is educated. So that wraps up the educational piece, and now we'll move on to awareness. The next point is awareness, and I believe that when people are more aware of something, they are more likely to take responsibility for it, or at least that is the goal and the hope. So the first recommendation is the formation of the East Valley Coalition for Teen Violence Prevention. So we, the task force, recommend exploring the formation of a regional coalition across the East Valley to unite community organizations, schools, local governments, and law enforcement in a more coordinated effort to prevent teen violence. The collaboration is the important piece of this because by working together, these organizations can share resources, knowledge, and strategies to address teen violence and more effectively and efficiently. The resource sharing within a coalition, we can leverage collective funding, educational programs, and support systems, and this just ensures that no single organization is overwhelmed by the sheer responsibility of preventing teen violence. As I mentioned earlier, this is a collective effort, and so this collaboration is important. This is we feel like it's a very sustainable model long-term because it creates a more unified and ongoing response to the challenges surrounding teen violence. The next part of awareness is the webpage development. We, the task force, recommend creating a more dedicated webpage on the town's website to keep the community informed about the ongoing efforts to reduce teen violence. This includes updates on curfew enforcement and other preventative measures and how well they are doing. We currently like how there's a webpage on the Gilbert Town webpage for the teen violence investigations, which is critical for people to be able to follow up and stay abreast of the current issues and investigations. A web page of this magnitude does have a layer of transparency, and it would help to be more transparent on the community's efforts to show that Gilbert is tackling this face-on. This can also be done by setting SMART goals for how the town will reduce teen violence and explain to the public how these will be measured, because we all like numbers, we all like stats, and we like to see that something is working and how well it's working. This ongoing engagement could be for a page where residents come and share their thoughts, their feedback, and ask questions and stay engaged with the town's actions on teen violence prevention. A webpage is accessible. It's a central hub for resources and updates for all residents. The next part of awareness is a social media campaign by teens and for teens. So we, the task force, recommend supporting a social media campaign that's led by teens. Now, we all love social media. Our teens love it a lot. They're on it a lot, and when used responsibly, it can do a lot of good. Social media can be used to also spread a lot of bad. And we want to use this campaign to make sure that our teens are using social media responsibly. So we recommend supporting the creation of a social media campaign that's led by teens to raise awareness about teen violence, specifically in our communities, and promote nonviolent behaviors among their peers. The peer influence, again, the teenagers are more likely to listen and be influenced by their peers rather than adults. A campaign led by teens can speak directly to their experiences, making a message more relatable and impactful. Social media platforms like TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, they're spaces where teens are already engaged. So if we can leverage a campaign, we can use these platforms to resonate and be more authentic. A social media campaign that's led by teens can also add a layer of empowerment. So by involving teens in the development of this campaign and the execution, we not only give them a voice, but we do empower them to take responsibility for their actions when they're in school, when they're in their community, and it just gives them that thought that they still have to be responsible. And the messages on this social media campaign will always be targeted about the specific issues at hand in our community. The last piece of awareness is the Parks and Recreation partnerships. So we, the task force, recommend strengthening our partnerships between Parks and Recreation and local schools. We need to get people more active in the community. If people don't know what's going on in the community, then there's no way to be as active. And the goal is to raise awareness of the available community programs that can support teens in preventing and addressing violence. Not many people, as we learned during our planning, were aware at the amazing classes that the Park and Recreations had on their website, and they even have things planned for 2025, and it's so important that the community knows that these are available. And with this type of program being integrated, by visiting schools to introduce to students the community resources, we can ensure that the teens are aware of positive outlets and the support systems available to them. The long-term impact for the Parks and Recreation partnerships, it helps to establish a stronger connection between schools and recreational programs to provide teens with ongoing support. The last piece of our recommendations are resources, and this goes back to our teen ambassadors. So the first piece was about education, and it's more about our teen ambassadors being an educational piece within their communities and their school. And the resource part of the teen ambassadors focus on the support system that the teen ambassadors will need. So our goal is to empower teen ambassadors. So we, the task force, recommend creating a more comprehensive support system for these young leaders. This includes regular quarterly meetings with town officials to share progress on violence prevention efforts, discuss challenges and solutions, and provide feedback to improve engagement. Additionally, we propose offering leadership training that equips them with conflict resolution skills so that they're able to translate this back within their schools, and peer mediation techniques. The mentoring will also be a key with older teen ambassadors because they will be able to support the younger ones and build a more stronger peer-driven network. The next part of our resources is the school resource officers, the SROs at campuses. This is a topic that was really interesting too, because we got to learn a lot about how engaged the SROs are at the schools and where there are cracks within the SRO program and funding. We recommend looking at offering more SRO opportunities for charter schools and offering more SROs to more than one SRO per school. It's critical that every campus involving junior high and high schools have access to qualified and trained SROs. This includes charter and private schools when possible. We did learn that the SROs in the schools are very involved and they work hard to foster relationships with kids so they don't feel afraid on campus. However, we learned that this program does have some cracks, specifically the SRO to kid ratio in school. There's usually one SRO to hundreds of students, and this is simply not enough. And the SROs do a lot within the community for the schools. This is a resource because we also understand the financial aspect that schools will need to participate in for the funding. We recommend partnering with local schools to expand the presence of SROs because these officers not only respond to incidents, but they also build memorable relationships with students and create a safer, more supportive environment. To support this, we'll need ongoing funding and recruitment efforts to ensure that we attract qualified candidates and retain them in their vital roles. We did learn that they are very trained for their position, and we appreciated that a lot. The next part of our resources is events that include food. We all love food, and we're going to go where the food is at, specifically our youth. So the task force recommend creating or partnering on a variety of youth events to engage teens in fun, supervised activities. So this can include game nights where teens can socialize in a friend-friendly environment. One of the things that we learned while planning is that teens, they want somewhere to go, whether it's late at night, whether they are just getting out of school, they need somewhere to go hang out. And we want these places to be more safer and supervised so that all of their behavior is monitored. So these events can include game nights, field trips, or mobile parks and recreation programs. With the mobile parks and recreation programs, they can bring sports, arts, and other activities directly to teen-friendly locations, specifically in underserved areas. Free or reduced food costs should be provided at these events. That's what we came up with, to ensure accessibility, ensure that the teen feels excluded and included, do not feel excluded due to financial barriers. We also brought up the idea of having teen nights, maybe on Friday nights and Saturday nights. So we recommend exploring the creation of teen nights at local recreation centers, specifically on these nights. And these events will provide a fun and safe place for the teens to hang out and socialize in a more structured environment. As I mentioned earlier, a lot of the classes, the educational classes, we thought would be best to be held at these recreation centers. So some of these classes with some food would be a great implementation strategy as well. With these events, we kind of tied it back to the collaboration with the schools and the teen ambassadors. So being able to partner with the schools and the teen ambassadors is a key. So we recommend working together to sponsor events or contests within the school community, incorporating teen leaders who can help engage their peers. These collaborations can integrate youth events into existing school programs and build a sense of community between school life and extracurricular activities. The teen ambassadors can take on leadership roles in planning and promoting these events. The last piece of our resource is using social media as a resource. So the role of social media, as we know, is very important. We've seen a lot of things on social media, good and bad. Social media is a powerful tool of communication, and it's only going to become more progressive. And so we can use it to connect with teens directly. So we, the task force, recommend developing a comprehensive social media strategy that shares key information on teen violence, prevention resources, which Gilbert already has a lot of. They just need to be more mainstream. The local ordinances relevant to teens, such as curfew laws or substance use regulations, community events, and activities teens can get involved in. Additionally, we do want to empower teens to create and manage their own social media accounts focused on positive messages and peer engagement. This can include training programs, content creation, branding, and safety. By engaging the teen influencers is another important tactic. By collaborating with local influencers, we can amplify our message and even reach more teens through their network. So we wanted to drive home the importance of reposting important and responsible content throughout social media. As we heard a lot about the Report Don't Repost campaign, we want to report the risky behavior, but we want to repost the most important behaviors. So thank you, Mayor and Town Council, for the consideration of these recommendations. And I'll hand it back to Melanie.
Thank you, Natasha. Very well done. Did you take a breath during all of that? Because I was getting worried for you.
Yes, thank you very much. You did an excellent job summarizing all of the hard work that we did over, it was a compressed time frame, very engaged group that we had participating, as well as some of our outside providers as well. So at this time, we can take any questions or hear any feedback that you'd like to share at the moment.
Thank you, Melanie. I'll go to Councilmember Tilkey first.
Melanie, did you say the chief wanted to have a few words before?
So then if there's not any specific, what I'll do, I'll just do this, and then I do want to just say a thank you to Councilmember Tilkey. She was our council liaison, did a fantastic job leading us through this process, providing information as needed. I also want to really thank Kathleen Dollar, who helped facilitate the compression planning. It was a lot of work to get us to this end product in a short time frame, did a great job. Dawn Prince as our staff liaison as well. And then as you can see, I just wanted to highlight all of the members that participated as part of this group, and we had great attendance throughout all of the meetings. And then really also our advisory members, you were able to let us have some folks come in to also provide a voice from the schools and our police department, and they did a great job as well, which I do want to now just give a moment to Assistant Chief Bisegli as part of kind of our PD group, and let him say a few words as well.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I just want to say a few words about the Community Engagement Task Force, and I would first like to begin by thanking every member of the Community Engagement Task Force for all of their hard work over the past 6 months. What an impressive group of community members coming together and sharing their dedication to finding solutions to teen violence in our community. The group convened in June and truly rose to the challenge of addressing this complex issue. The police department has been involved in every step of the process, and we understand that the work is not complete. With the opportunity to be present during the listening sessions, during which we heard from our community and gained valuable information on how we could continue to work together on engaging our youth and empowering them. Tonight, as I listen to the action plan and the recommendations, education, awareness, and resources, I want to emphasize that we as a police department understand the job is not over. We look forward to continuing to work together, hand in hand with our community, especially our youth. Working together, and I'll say it one more time, working together, we can build a safer, more supportive environment for the future leaders of our community, our youth. Thank you again for your dedication and partnership to this important topic, and we look forward to the next steps.
Thank you, Chief Bisegli. Melanie, can you ask the members, well, I'll just ask them, anybody that's here present this evening that was on the Community Engagement Task Force, will you please stand? Thank you. We know that this was a very compressed process, and you had to, first of all, go through the open meeting law training, which I know can be daunting and horrifying at the same time. So I just wanted to say thank you for participating, for being willing, I know that we met you all when we did your interviews, but be willing to put in the time that you have over the last 5 or 6 months or so. So thank you so much. Let's give them a round of applause. And Natasha, especially for taking on the role of chair. I know that that is not easy, so a big thank you to you. You can be seated. Thank you. Councilmember Tilkey, would you like to go?
Yes, thank you. I'm hoping that you'll have some comments and questions as we go along, but I'm probably going to repeat a little bit of what's been said. But first and foremost, just a reminder that this is the preliminary report, and so the feedback that we receive from the council will be included in a final report that will come to us soon, to you guys soon, I should say. I wanted to acknowledge the amazing task force that we had, and they were all committed, interactive, and participated in open and frank dialogue. I couldn't be prouder of their time together. As I mentioned during my reports to the council twice a month, the town of Gilbert cannot solve this issue alone. This is a community issue, and we need to respect our jurisdictions and work with our longstanding partners like our schools, public, charter, and private. We can accomplish so much if we work together, but the town and the schools will never be successful if parents aren't engaged and accountable, or if our students aren't willing to be part of the solution. We've outlined many opportunities to help parents and students be connected tonight. I hope that the community will embrace these recommendations as phase one of our lifelong efforts for a safe community for all. And I echo what Assistant Chief mentioned as well. When you think about all the work that went into this and the time that was given, I want to say a huge thank you to Melanie. She got us through this, and you know, we threw this at her in the middle of her trying to finalize everything from our other task force, which you'll hear more about this evening, but she's been a superstar and wonderful to work with. Dawn, Judy, and Ashley from our town clerk's office were there with us the entire time, and I appreciate it. Kathleen Dowler is one of the most busy women in the town of Gilbert, yet she continues to stop and give to important efforts like this, so huge thank you for that. And, you know, it's been a privilege to work with this task force and the larger one as well, and I just want to thank you for the opportunity. A couple things I just wanted to mention, that the teens led this discussion on the student ambassadors in the social media. They really brought this topic forward. The entire group really vetted it out, and we understand there's some guardrails that will need to be put in place, and they do too, but they're very excited at having teen voices heard within their schools and within their community, and so I hope that we'll explore that as time goes on. And I have been approached in the past of people interested in providing some grant dollars if we're going to do some of these events for teens. And so if we choose to move forward with that, I think we can have some money that will help us take care of that and provide those safe places for teens to gather. And Emily with the police department, our youth coordinator, was able to be, huh?
Emily's out sick tonight.
Oh, okay. I'm looking for her. I was like, where is she? Anyway, she was able to participate in this conversation with us as well and was part of our task force. So with that, I want to turn it over to you. I hope you have lots of questions, and thank you very much.
Councilmember Bongiovanni.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think when we started the Teen Violence Subcommittee, our hopes were that we would end today with what we have seen from you guys. I appreciate the hard work, real deep analysis of the issues and the overall encompassing solutions that you came up with. I really like the part about the events for youth. I think we need those things, and the support of the SROs and the teen ambassadors. I look forward to hopefully bring some of these things forward and watch them grow over the next year or so.
Vice Mayor Anderson.
Thank you so much, Natasha, Melanie, and the whole task force. Great job. I will be going back, as Councilmember Bongiovanni mentioned, we had those listening sessions, the subcommittee, in which we just received feedback from the community and told them that we would work on solutions based on the feedback that we get from them. And so I'm looking forward to taking a look at my notes on that and comparing that, but what I can see right now seems to be right on with what they were asking us to do in those subcommittee meetings. So very well done, and thank you so much.
Any other comments? Seeing none, I'll just say that I have the advantage of having a Mayor's Youth Advisory Committee, and you have had a couple of members of my teens in your Community Engagement Task Force, and they're smart as can be. But I took the opportunity in April to sit down with last year's group before they graduated, and I came in jeans and a T-shirt and sneakers, and I sat with them and I said, let's just talk. I think we've spent the past 4 months talking about you, but I want to talk to you and I want to hear from you. And so we talked about SROs being on school campuses and what they think about that, and did they think that they needed more? And they said no. They said we would feel uncomfortable if we had more. Now, I'm going to say, I had 32 students in that group. I had probably 28 of them present that night from 14 different high schools. So we covered the gamut of district schools, private schools, charter schools, Gilbert schools, Chandler schools, like we covered the gamut. And they said they would feel more uncomfortable if they had more SROs in their schools, which surprised me. But they said, when you put more police in, it says we have problems. That was their logic for it. They don't feel unsafe. They didn't feel unsafe at home. They didn't feel unsafe at school. These are the things that I heard from them. I just asked them straight out questions. They hadn't heard about teen violence prior to Preston Lord. One boy said he had heard about some fights. That was it, out of all the kids that were present that night. They love where they go to school, they love where they live, they love their friends. But one thing that you said, Natasha, and I wrote it down, it was early in your comments, and I wrote down, we're the average of the 5 people that we spend the most time with, right? And I think as adults, older adults up here, my friend group has changed over the years. It's changed in the past 4 or 5 years. And when you said that, I thought, who are my 5, right? Who am I with the most? And how does that reflect on me? And as teens, they don't learn that early enough, right? Sometimes you have to break up with your friends. Sometimes you have to. Even as adults, I've had to break up with friends. It sounds weird, but I've had to break up with girlfriends because it just wasn't working. The relationship just wasn't working. So those are things that you learn as you go on in life. But that was one thing that really caught me. But I just wanted to share a couple of things that the teens had told me in that little session that we did together, because again, I thought that we had been talking about them a lot, but I hadn't been hearing from them. And so it was important to share that before I'm gone and not here to share more as the Community Engagement Task Force moves forward or plans move forward with the Gilbert Council. Any other comments at this time? Seeing none, again, thank you for all of your work. Melanie, appreciate everything that you do in the town. And that concludes this topic. Thank you so much. We will adjourn our study session and we'll be back at 6 for Student of the Month.
Mic check. Mic check.